I'm Victoria. I'm a child psychiatrist and parent coach, and I'm also a mum. And today I'm talking about whether children really know about what's happening in relationships. How important are the relationships between parents or partners when it comes to kids? So I'll be talking a little bit about that, and if you're interested in that, stay tuned. So it probably won't come as any surprise to you that children always know something is up. And it's really amazing because I meet lots and lots of parents and they tell me that they haven't told their children anything, that they absolutely do not discuss anything in front of their kids, or perhaps their children are really small, so they might not even be fully understanding kind of what's being said. But I have to say, children do always seem to know. They always seem to have an idea of what's happening. They are very attuned to you. After all, this is someone who has spent a huge amount of time with you or your partner or both of you, and they are attuned to you in a way that's not necessarily verbal, and they will probably be picking up on cues that you might not even know you're giving out. So children do always pick up that something is up. And actually, sometimes what's much more worrying for them is if they're picking up the cues that something's up, but they don't actually know what it is, because then they start imagining what it might be and they build a whole thing in their head about what might happen. And this especially happens in teenagers because they're at that point in their lives where they can start to imagine the future and they can start to think about things that might happen, but they don't always get it quite right. So if they have a little bit of information which just comes in via their kind of worry, and then they start to imagine, they can really come to some very, very interesting conclusions, especially if they are generally a bit more of an anxious child, a bit more of a worrier, then it can actually be quite scary for them. But they probably won't tell you about it, because if they think that something's happening for you, they're probably going to be worried about you. So they're probably going to hold on to that and just worry, and it can really get out of hand. And certainly I have absolutely seen children who end up coming to me in my clinical practice where actually what they're doing is they're bringing their parents who have a very difficult relationship, and they're actually saying, I've got so ill because this is happening at home, please, support them. Of course they don't verbally say that, but that's what we see through the behaviours, and what we see is that when the relationship is looked at, supported, we help to either resolve it, or the partners decide that actually they don't want to continue with it. It actually brings about a huge change in the child, and they settle down because they actually know what's happening, they know it's being looked at, and they just settle down knowing that their parents are being supported. And we know that even before a child is born, that actually a supportive partner is really important. It improves the chances of things going well, and even in the first year of life, a supportive partner, again, is very important and associated with better outcomes for children when it comes to emotional well-being later on in life. So they absolutely pick things up, even if they are very tiny, or if they're not really talking at all, or if you think actually they don't know anything, they absolutely will do. So it's probably more important that you are honest with them, especially with older children that are able to start projecting what they think might happen. There has obviously got to be a balance of honesty if you are struggling with your relationships, if there are some difficulties. I think what your child needs to know, or your children need to know, is that you are thinking about it and it is being sorted out elsewhere, that they don't need to worry about it, but that they will get to find out once things get decided, or that there is something actively happening for you and your partner or spouse. And that can mean things like counselling, it can mean just having some time away from each other and having some time to think. And if you do those sorts of things where you set some time limits perhaps on actually we want to try for so long, or we want to have a break for so long, then involve your child in knowing that and saying, well, this is what we're doing and this is how long we're going to do it for, and then at this time we'll think about it again and see. It will be stressful for them, but it will probably be less stressful than not knowing and imagining what might happen. Obviously, for slightly smaller children, you'll have to come up with something more simple for them to understand, but again, it's helping them to understand the predictability of what's going on. So the biggest thing you can do for your child is address whatever is going on in your relationships. If there are difficulties, please seek the support that you need to make sure that, first of all, you're safe, but also that you're in a relationship that's supportive for you in whatever way that is, because it is different for all people. But it's important that you're comfortable and happy in your relationships, because your child will really pick up on that, and may develop difficulties such as anxiety or other difficulties if you actually have problems in your relationship.